Hello, everyone, and welcome to Jump Up Supercast, the only podcast on the internet to spend the next hour talking only about Katy Perry. I'm Will, and joining me this week, Brandon.
I'm only willing to talk about God Slayer Bowser.
Ills.
She's still dating Orlando Bloom.
And Muzamil.
Why couldn't Pokemon Company get someone more relevant?
You gotta be careful. I've said it as a joke, but we're gonna make it a reality. We're gonna spend an hour. I did not expect. I couldn't have told you who Katy Perry was dating right now. So congrats to you, Ills.
I mean, I feel like
may
that
or may
happened a
not
long
be
time
Orlando
ago.
Bloom. Who knows?
They might be married. I'm not sure.
Are they married? Wow. You say, Muzamil, how can you say that she's a has-been when she's dating the Legolas, who's also definitely not a has-been, okay?
Wow.
Last 4 years. They're still together, else I just Googled it. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the podcast.
Hello.
There was
to the Jump
a
Up
lot of news
Supercast.
this week. Was there a lot of news this week? What do you think? How do you feel about it?
I mean, in comparison to the last month or two, yes.
A lot of news.
Yeah.
A lot of news.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of stuff we could talk about. If any of these individual items happened in the last 4 weeks, we would have found a way to string 30 minutes from them.
Well, you know what? Let's do that. Just all of these items get 30 minutes, make Saf's life a living hell. No, so we'll get to... this is probably the bigger news of the week. Early on, Monday, I guess a week ago when you're hearing this, Disney and LucasArts says, hey, we're bringing back LucasArts games, right? When Disney bought them, Lucasfilm, they shuttered them, right? Disney said, we don't want to make any more games internally anymore, right? We're only going to partner with people. They're still technically doing that, but now they're like, we're going to emphasize it, right? And the game that they announced to state that was a collaboration with Bethesda, and specifically Machine Games, who make Wolfenstein 1 and 2, the more modern ones, who are making an Indiana Jones video game.
AAA Indiana Jones video game.
Yeah,
That was interesting.
Uncharted clone.
Yeah, I can't believe we're making an Uncharted ripoff.
Uncharted's getting a movie, and Indiana Jones is getting a
video game.
A video game.
No, Uncharted was already a ripoff of Tomb Raider.
Wasn't it? Now it's the cycle continues.
Yeah.
The cosmic dance goes on. So
this is
go ahead.
weird.
Yeah.
Because Indiana Jones is not a particularly I mean, yeah, it's a big IP, but I don't know. It was not the first thing your mind goes to when you're like, what AAA license game do you want? You know?
Well, I think specifically under Lucasfilms, yeah. Right.
Oh, well, sure, under Lucasfilms.
Well, not the first,
yeah.
but it's a big IP, but it's not the first thing my mind goes to.
But Machine Games in particular seems like a weird fit for this. They make Wolfenstein games. I guess the one through line is Nazis are the bad guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also in real life, yeah.
True.
So I mean, that's the thing is Indiana Jones is they want it to be a big IP again. Disney does, right? They're planning a fifth one. They're planning all these other things. But it's one that's never gotten a big shot in the video game space, right? There was Lego Indiana Jones, and then there was the old, in the SNES and early in PC adventure games type deal, right?
Well, yeah. I mean, there was a Super Indiana Jones game that was in the same line of
the Super Star Wars,
Star Wars games.
And
so that was pretty good.
When I was looking up,
also very hard.
There was supposed to be a big Indiana Jones 360 game that got canceled. It got canned. But it was at E3 a couple of years.
So there was an N64 Indiana Jones game. And it was only available at Blockbuster. And I remember this specifically because I rented it. And it was one of the first games that my mom caught me swearing at.
Oh, no.
I was very mad.
I
don't remember it being very good. I remember getting really pissed at it.
Yeah. So I guess
there's secretly been a bunch of them actually.
Yeah, but I would say none of them have gotten the big AAA shot, right? And none of them had the cultural penetration of Battlefront, the originals, right? Or even older Star Wars.
Sure.
So, do you think this game will be first or third person?
Third.
I hope
I
it's
would
third.
hope third. I don't know. First person would be weird, right?
Yes.
Yeah,
I feel
it
like
would be weird.
Be weird with a whip, especially. I assume you have to have the whip.
Yeah, you
In
have
the
to have
intro.
the
course.
Like a first-person game where you whip, it doesn't. That seems weird to me.
I really hope the combat's designed around said whip and not like gun focused.
Yeah.
Well, he uses a gun too. I mean,
I know, I know. That's why I'm saying I hope it's not gun focused because
Well,
like you could pull out the excuse for it, but come on.
But like,
You wanna use...
it's both though. Like he should be.
No,
using
I'm not
both.
saying there's not a place for guns, but I'm saying like I don't want like 85% of the combat to be just a third person shooter.
Wolfenstein, right? Like Wolfenstein 1 and 2 are both very good video games, but they're not what you envision Indiana Jones, right? Like when I picture him, the only time I picture him using a gun is the time he shoots the guy that does the sword thing, right? And that's not necessarily Indy uses a gun. It's more like Indy just isn't like he does weird things that are outside the expectations of like how you solve problems, right? Like he's sort of figuring things out as he goes, and
Yeah,
like those are things that.
He's not like your typical action hero. He's just gonna, if you come at him with a sword, he's gonna fuck you up.
Yeah, and he's sort of. It's the thing that they like talked about when they made Uncharted, right? I remember, but like if you look at Indiana Jones gets beat up a lot, right? He gets punched like all the time, right? Like there's a lot of times where he clearly does not have a plan and is making it up, right? And like that sort of element is like that would be neat to see if you can make that work in a video game context, right? Not necessarily like when you are both doing the tomb raiding, right, and when you are fighting. Pardon the phrase of using tomb raiding, but that you feel like you are being clever or like using your wits in some way, right? Rather than just brute forcing, like I'm just going to shoot everyone, right? Because like the whip is a weapon, like it's his most iconic thing, but it's a thing you can't like take out 50 guys with a whip while they're all pointing guns at you, right?
I'll say that to Kratos.
True. Indy he's not quite as magic. So yeah, so I don't know. We can talk about this with the other thing that they announced, right, this week in terms of new games, which is we're getting a big open world Star Wars game from Ubisoft, right?
Also really interesting.
I mean, the game itself doesn't interest me, but the news interests me because it's EA had an exclusivity license with Disney for Star Wars. They reshuffled all their studios to be Star Wars studios, and they still get to make Star Wars games, mind you, but they are no longer the exclusive license holder, which I imagine is a bit of a big blow to Electronic Arts.
Yeah, it's funny. It's funny that this comes after them releasing their best Star Wars game yet. Best
selling and commercially received. I mean, critically and commercially, both.
Yeah, both.
Yeah.
And
it's just funny that this comes right after that. But I mean, it's a long time coming, kind of, for them. So
it seems like the ink just dried on both of these deals.
Yes, it seems incredibly recent. Yeah.
Like they said, like don't expect these games for a while. Almost like the way they announced the Avengers game a couple years back.
Yeah,
and so I think it'll be interesting. Obviously, I'm curious because, like you said, like Jedi Fallen Order is an unequivocal success. It's the biggest success of this whole new era for Disney, right? But like Battlefront 1 and even 2, like, you know, both sold well. But Battlefront 2 also got them a ton of negative press, right?
A lot, yeah.
And then, you know, just a bunch of other, you know, like Squadrons, I think did okay, right? But it sort of came and went, right? So I think it's interesting that like the game that did the best for them was the one that was not very trend chasey, right? Like Jedi Fallen Order, like, because obviously they're like, we're going to make Star Wars a games as a service thing. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. Right. Same thing with Avengers. Right. And both of those didn't really work out. But then when there's like, we're going to make a single player game, it's going to get well received. It's going to have just a good word of mouth. And spoilers, when you have a brand as big as Star Wars, that's actually all you need to sell 15 million copies. Right. You don't need to put all this stuff on top. So hopefully that's a lesson learned, right?
Yeah.
But well, like you
hopefully
said, it'll be
somebody
years.
fucking makes KOTOR 3, but you know.
That's a big one.
I got a question that I was wondering. With the Bethesda Indiana Jones game, do you think that'll end up being because it's Bethesda and Xbox console exclusive, or what do you think the deal will be with that?
I think there's a high likelihood. I know a lot of people saying, "Oh, it's licensed, so it probably won't be whatever." But I mean, Spider-Man PS4 exists, right?
Yeah,
that is
exactly.
a wholly exclusive first-party game. I don't know. I think there's a decent chance that because it's a first-party studio, I think that it might or will be sometime this year. I think, and it's early on enough, right? You have to imagine this deal was made knowing, with the backdrop of knowing that this announcement happened, right? That Microsoft is purchasing Bethesda, they're acquiring Bethesda, or all of ZeniMax, and so I imagine while coming up with this contract with Disney, I imagine that came up, and I imagine they've taken that into account.
Yeah.
I mean, just as equally, I wouldn't be surprised, I guess, if it doesn't. I mean, we've seen examples of that, right? Like Ghostwire Tokyo and from Bethesda, Ghostwire Tokyo and Deathloop, both arriving probably before the acquisition completes, but still, those are getting honored, right?
Yeah.
Also, I mean, Minecraft is still multi-platform, right? Psychonauts 2, despite Microsoft publishing it, because they promised it would come to PlayStation, they're not reneging on that. It's still coming to
PS4. There's a PS4 version. There's not going to be a PS5 version, but there is a PS4 version.
But because they promised that PS4 version, they're not gonna they're not canceling that.
They're fulfilling
right?
those obligations,
right.
yeah.
So there's precedent, but I don't know. I don't think it's set in stone that it won't be exclusive though. I think there's a distinct possibility that it is.
Yeah, it's just interesting to wonder about, because we don't know. They didn't say anything about platforms, and you're just left to wonder.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it'll be interesting to see. Obviously, all these companies do not. They take a license project because it feels like there's a certain amount of baked-in sales, right? Now, whether or not that reflects in reality, you can argue because, I think we know Square took hundreds of millions of dollars of loss on Avengers, right? That was a game that did not work out for them. So it'll be interesting to sort of see, with platform holders intersecting with that, right? With things like Game Pass, like you said, sort of Microsoft has a lot of different avenues they can take to sort of add value, even that doesn't require it to be fully exclusive, right? Or it could be timed or whatever else, right? But it'll, whereas with if this was Sony, I feel like it'd be way more likely that this is just pure exclusive, right? Because that's far more of their clear strategy, right? Mm-hmm. Though Phil Spencer's been in interviews being like, we didn't spend $7 million. However much they spent on Bethesda for it to be on all the consoles, right? We spent this money to make ourselves look better, so we'll see.
I mean, as long as Disney gets their check, I don't know if they'll care that much.
Same. Because I saw people being like, well, they're definitely not putting it on Game Pass, that's for sure. And I'm like, well, I mean, they kind of already said all of our first party games are coming to Game Pass, and then somebody else pointed out, I saw just. Well, if Disney gets paid, I don't think they care if it goes straight to Game Pass,
I mean, if anything, Game Pass, I don't know if it'll be exclusive or not, but I feel like Game Pass is the one guarantee, right? Yeah. Because, I mean, Microsoft will be the publisher of this game, and I have to imagine, I said, it makes it come up, but even more so, I'm sure Microsoft was probably, at some stage, involved in this negotiation, because I mean, it's going to affect them because essentially they're going to be the publisher of this game, right? So I have to imagine they were roped in for some of these conversations, and obviously I'm sure things like Game Pass came up and what have you, right? Yeah. I don't know if Bethesda would get the blessing to take this deal if it didn't, if Microsoft wasn't favorable to the terms, considering coming after the public announcement of the acquisition, Yeah.
And this is sort of a wider question about licensed games in general, right? Do we, because I sort of alluded to it earlier, do you think we need to decouple the idea that a successful film franchise makes an IP have better video game success, right? Because we can say Star Wars is still obviously huge, right? But like Jedi Fallen Order came out when Star Wars was at a low point, right? Like it was in between Solo and Rise of Skywalker, right? Like not like a, you know, it wasn't like the series was like well beloved, right, at that moment. Like, and then like Avengers obviously is the biggest it's ever been, and the Avengers game flopped. Is there sort of like, you can see how the corporate executives would think, oh, we're guaranteed to do well, right? But like really, like you wouldn't assume that just because a thing is like Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., right? Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. did not destroy in the ratings while Marvel was at the top of the world, right? But we do assume that with video games, because I think 20 years of ingrained thoughts from licensed things coming out with the movie, right? Like,
wait, do we assume that with video games?
I mean,
feel like
when I
don't.
see companies, I think they do. I think like EA does, right? Which is why they gave everything in the world to Star Wars, right? When like, you know, from a lot of those games, like did Battlefront 2 do appreciably better than a new Battlefield? Like, I don't feel like it did in the long run, right? Like, so I think that there is still value. I hope that the companies are aware that like, hey, it's also important to develop your own IP, right? And like, don't think of chasing this dragon of like whatever Disney offers you as scraps, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know. That was sort of, I just think it's interesting to look at where obviously all of media is being sort of sucked up by big global giants, right? Whether it's Disney or Warner Brothers or whatever else, right? And video games, we talked before, are going to be part of that process for better or for worse, right? But I'm very curious to see how that sort of goes, right? Anyways. The last thing they did, which was just a nice, speaking of well-received video games that are related to Star Wars, Fallen Order, they did the next-gen patch for this week as well, right? So, the way that game is sold this year, it may as well be a new title, and a next-gen update only makes sense. Like, that's a game that will still be selling probably 2 or 3 years from now, because that's the value of making a good evergreen video game.
Yeah. I'm kind of happy that I waited. I was going to play it near the end of last year, and then I was like, I'll wait. I'll just play it sometime next year. And now I'm glad, because now I can play the next gen version.
Now it runs well, so it should be noted, it's still using back compat to play it, so it's not like proper quote unquote next gen version, right?
Sure.
Nonetheless, it is both systems have shown the capability to like in back compat mode like recognize that it's running on better hardware and then act accordingly, right?
Yeah,
and that's what this is doing. So it's more it's utilizing that extra power even more than they were before.
Yeah, and it's like it's slightly different on PS5 versus Xbox, right? Like both are going to be 60, but like Xbox has more dynamic resolution where it'll go a little bit lower but a little bit higher, whereas the PS5 is locked in.
Also, the Series X version, interestingly, has like both a performance mode and a quality mode, which they all did before. They took that out of the PS5 version. It is now just it's only running at performance mode now. And then the Series S is running at 60 FPS as well. So all three next gen versions are running at 60 frames per second now. But Series X also has the option of capping that frame rate to 30 and just running at a higher resolution.
Yeah. So that's pretty neat, pretty interesting. We'll pivot to Nintendo, right? Because they had two, I guess, Pokemon's there in Nintendo. They had 2 trailers this week. One was for Super Mario 3D World plus Bowser's Fury. This is almost entirely about Bowser's Fury, right? We finally have an inkling of what it is, which is a separate game mode you pick from the main menu. It loads you up in the trailer. They load you up. You're in a sandboxy type area, but the design is a lot more in line with 3D World's more sort of platformer focused type of levels, right? But then the big thing is halfway through that trailer, Bowser shows up and is a nightmare monster. He's been consumed by evil black goo. And we now know just from press releases that after a certain amount of time, Bowser in the level will wake up, a bunch of things will rain from the sky, it will change the layout of the level, and either you have enough of these cat coins you collect to go Super Saiyan and become very large, Golden Great Ape Mario, and fight Bowser, or you have to just run from him until he goes back to sleep, right? And then he'll the process resets.
It's essentially a kaiju battle.
Yeah, he's a big freaky kaiju monster. This is, I think, interesting for a lot of reasons, right? But what are your sort of first just blushes from what we saw in the trailer?
Did we see any of the levels themselves? Because I only saw the overworld, and I don't know. It seemed small.
So it seems to be a singular map. So it's like the way I would describe it is it seems to be like an Odyssey Kingdom, right? But with 3D World's design ethos, right? Mm-hmm. And with that, it's obviously still using 3D World's elements. Like everything you see, pretty much you'll see in a level, like in the base game, I guess, right? But just retrofitted onto this like one big open map.
Yeah. Not to get too like in the weeds on like the analysis of it, but we do see in the very first trailer, right, you see the sort of opening area that's more beachy, right? It's in the same trailer here. But then in the second trailer, we see this little ice area, right, where you're riding on Plessy and stuff. In the original trailer, that part's covered up by the black goop. And then in the second trailer, it's not. So what people are guessing is essentially, like, you will go collect the things for this little area, right? Then when you collect enough and you either fight Bowser or whatever else, the goop will recede and you'll have more of the level to explore, right? And you'll go through that, and that sort of is how there will still be the kind of level structure is through that, right? Where you get different zones as you progress.
How long do you think this game's going to be?
Nintendo themselves said it's short but exciting was their language.
My guess is like
a couple hours.
2 to 5 hours.
Yeah, somewhere in that range.
Yeah.
I'm thinking closer to 2 than 5, to be honest. Like, I'm sort of saying those expectations low, but
I don't know, it might be longer. I don't think like it's like
I was thinking like maybe 5 to 8, but yeah, 5 is probably around
I think
where it's
5. I'm feeling 4 to 5. That's where I'm feeling mostly, to be honest. It still does seem pretty expensive. Like, especially, I imagine obviously just running through the credits won't be that long, but that's the case for most Mario games, right? Like I ran through Mario Galaxy in like 7 hours, right? And this will be shorter than Galaxy, right?
Yeah.
But like I imagine collecting everything, seeing all there is to see, will take a little bit longer.
Yeah.
So I think that would be a decent amount of content.
I think this game's interesting because I feel like we essentially know that this was going to be out in like summer of last year before COVID happened, right? Or at least I think it was supposed to be a 2020 game in general, because we know that the Mario 3D 35th was supposed to be earlier in the year too. But I think it's interesting because in a lot of ways, like if you look at the traction this trailer has got, it's got the sort of reach and attention of just a new Mario game, right? Not unlike, another Wii U game that was sort of held hostage on the system, Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, right? Or even New Super Mario Bros. U, right? All those games have sold like they're just new titles in the series. So do you think that because of that, there is sort of the ability for the Mario team to not have to put out a game this year and maybe even not even make a new Mario for a while?
I think
assume
clearly this is a smaller team working on it, right? Without a doubt. I think I sincerely believe that if Odyssey 2 was in development, then any resources towards this weird expansion would have just gone to Odyssey 2. Like, that's the only thing that would make sense. There's no reason otherwise to have this exist. And I promise I'm not just saying that because I'm an Odyssey hater. But no, I don't know. I really think that Tokyo's working on something else. I don't know what it is. It could be a new IP. Could be they want to take a spin at 2D Mario. Maybe they want to take a spin at Donkey Kong or some other returning franchise. It could be anything. But I strongly believe that this is kind of taking the place of a brand new 3D Mario game, and that they've been toiling away at something completely different in the interim.
Yeah.
And obviously they'll come back to 3D Mario for their next project after whatever we haven't seen yet, right? probably in line with the Switch's successor. But I think 3D Mario might be taking a small break.
Sure.
Yeah. So a couple of things we didn't mention. Like, this game is not multiplayer.
No.
I was really like kind of sad that it's not multiplayer like 3D World is, because it would have been cool. But and especially because it's attached to 3D World, and also there's Bowser Jr. in it. Like, so there's kind of like that
Bowser Jr.
Mario Galaxy kind of multiplayer.
He's
with the paintbrush.
He's helping Mario, right? He's alongside Mario,
betraying his father.
Which is kind of crazy. He plays like, I guess, Cappy in Odyssey, or like the Luma in Galaxy 2, right?
Yeah.
But that's a fun little twist on things. But it is weird that it's like, this is attached to 3D World, but this is primarily like a single player thing, right? And 3D World's, I think, core identity is like
tied to multiplayer.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, but the thing that they sort of settle on, I think, with 3D World was the reason that, like, the camera's fixed, that, like, there is that sort of not that element, is because in multiplayer, like, if you want to share that screen and be interacting like they sort of want you to be, right? Then you can't sort of like be able to turn the camera and go another direction than what sort of everyone else is going in, right? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I get that for what their idea was, then, like, unless you just want to have 4 people running around, like, in an open world, which you can just do, right? That's plenty of that, but yeah.
They could have just not made an open world.
Yeah, it's more to say, like, it doesn't necessarily seem like it fits with 3D World. Like, obviously it's all cat themed and you see 3D World element, but like you can tell that, like, this just feels more like an Odyssey type of deal, right? This feels like a Kingdom in Odyssey. It really does.
Well, I mean, I would kind of disagree with that a little bit, right? Not in a huge way, but just something that, like, I think it is meeting 3D World in a lot of in the middle, right? I think that, like, I don't think 3D World's given up a lot of its identity here, which is why I kind of like it, right? But I do think that in their mind, if we're going to be going back, do we want to do like a level pack, right? Essentially just a couple new worlds, or do we want to do a different thing, right? To sell people on $60 of a new game.
Right. But my initial conception of the game was like, this is an expansion of 3D World, and it's not.
Sure.
And it's very different from that.
Yeah.
And that's not necessarily a bad thing, mind you, but it's just
the same. Yeah. I'm just a little disappointed that it's not more of 3D World. But it's I'm sure it's going to be great. So
yeah. I mean, things that retroactively are hitting 3D World that they announced in an overview trailer this week was getting a picture mode, not unlike what we had in Odyssey. And online play, which we already knew, right? But they reconfirmed, and we got further confirmation that when they improved the engine, maybe for Bowser's Fury, I don't know how specifically what, but they realized the game can run faster. So that means that Mario himself is about 30% faster than he was in the base game.
Wow! Look out for Toad.
Look out! He will be a speed demon. Which I think is very interesting because, like, I'm curious how it might break some levels or not. Like, because, like, you know how there's the Conquerors, I think that's their name, is they look like the little, like, ostriches with really long necks that slam their head down when you run past them, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Like, someone had a side-by-side of, like, in Bowser's Fury, when they slam behind you, they're like, if you have to be at full speed to dodge them. Where in 3D World, they're still slamming at the rate of old Mario, so you just blow by them before they even get close to you, right? So I wonder if there's anything else that we'll sort of see, like, oh, this was suddenly way easier because you didn't alter the game to fit it. But I think that's very interesting to try, right? Like, for a Mario game, to just sort of... the base of all of Mario is how he controls so well, right? So for them to sort of give a second shot at it, I think is very interesting. Then the other Nintendo trailer they had this week, new Pokemon Snap is coming in April. There's various odds and ends, right? But this is sort of what you would think. You're taking pictures of Pokemon. There's roughly over, I think, what was the number?
200.
Over 200.
Wow.
Over 200.
Dexit continues.
They continue to erase their identities. Meanwhile, the other things they showed off that were new was there's this Illumia trait that exists. They use to show a Meganium with it, right? Where Pokemon get bigger and start glowing. Different than when they Dynamax, where they also get big and start glowing. And you meet the new professor and various other things, right? This is a new region. You're not going back to the old Snap Island, right? Because I saw some people thought that originally. But this is coming in April. That's, I think, the big thing. That was the title of the video, right? Is, hey, this thing is closer than you think. It's 3 months off, right?
April 30th. So
tail end, but
the last day of
but nonetheless, it's coming in 3 months, right? Which is soon, very soon. That's exciting. It looks the game's very pretty.
Yep.
200 Pokemon is already a fair bit higher than the original. In case you're wondering how it would stack content-wise, I guess. Right?
Yeah, it was 65 in the
60,
original.
Yeah, so we're looking at potentially over like triple, or I guess already over triple.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, this is a full-fledged game, but Pokemon Snap, right? And that's cool.
Yeah.
I'm excited for it.
One thing they said in the press release that I'm curious about, they didn't go into details about, seemingly pester balls are gone, because I think they thought, that's a little mean, actually, looking back.
Damn.
But they're like, they say that...
Wait a minute. This is a world where Pokemon fight each other. How does that mean?
Because you're just showing up in their natural environment just fucking throwing balls at them. It's mean.
The fuck?
But they said that over time and when you go back to levels, what Pokemon do will vary, right? Which I think, like, I'm very curious if that manifests. Because obviously in Pokemon Snap, there is a optimal run, right? Like, you go here, you do this to Pikachu, it gets on the surfboard, you take the picture, and it's the same every time, right?
There's a script the Pokemon run by.
Yeah.
And that's all they do every single time. So that's kind of cool.
Being more dynamic should really add to, like, the, I guess, replay value.
Absolutely. The replay value.
Yeah. And so but I think that will be an interesting shift, right? Because Pokemon Snap is like weirdly a score attack game, right? And there still is that, right? They still say you will be scored based on how good your pictures of the Pokemon are. Yeah. But I hope that we can keep more than one picture of each Pokemon, unlike in the original. Sure.
Seemingly you already can. There was a picture of an Apom in the kind of Pokedex thing that you have type of book, and there was like 4 different pictures. Also, there seems to be, it keeps track of the gender differences too. So there's which is in there, which is also cool. But yeah, seemingly it seemed that you can do that. Seems like you can take multiple pictures of the same Pokemon and keep them all. So,
how do you feel about the price tag?
Well, I mean, the first one came in at $40, so it was like $10 cheaper. But this is a full $60, so a full price game. But whatever, I'm gonna buy it.
We'll see how that goes.
I'm not kidding.
Yeah. I'm very curious to see, because this is one that has been requested for years by a group of, I would say, loud but vocal people, right? And whenever that happens, I'm very curious to see, does that desire extend beyond that loud but vocal people or not? I mean, Pokemon is extremely mainstream, so I imagine it would. But sure. I think it'll be interesting to see when it comes out.
Yeah, but I mean, was it just a small but very loud, group of people?
Well, I mean, it should be noted, Pokemon Snap is like one of the best-selling Pokemon spin-offs of all time on an install base that was much lower.
Sure.
What's that, like 20 million N64s? Some shit like that?
I don't know about that, because if you look at it though, if you look at the Pokemon spin-off games, the top 3 are like Stadium is number 1, number 2 is Pokemon Pinball, and then maybe I think Snap is 3. And those are like the first 3 that came out.
Yeah, I realized that, and like there was definitely it was timed very well. Obviously, Pokemania was huge in the 90s, but also Pokemania, Pokemon like is still huge, right?
Yeah,
obviously,
sure, yeah, this should be said.
Like Pokemon Snap sold over 3 million copies on the Nintendo 64. I think I think with the fervor that Snap has gotten, it's become this kind of cult classic, right? If the word of mouth is good and it looks good, which it does look good, I think this game could do really, really well. I mean, again, the Switch is a system...
Oh, it's a million seller for sure.
The Switch is a system that, I mean, obviously the install base is huge, but software, the attach rate on software is just ridiculous, right?
It's insane.
So... I would be shocked if this doesn't at least match the original, which would already put it in the upper tier of Pokemon spin-offs. Period.
Yeah, I mean, I was gonna say it's probably gonna sell. It's. I wouldn't be surprised if it sold at least like 4 or 5 million.
Yeah,
for real.
I agree. These two trailers, this week, plus Monster Hunter Rise, where I think what people hung their hat on as surely we're getting a January Direct, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think those hopes are dashed against the rocks. Sorry to all you.
Yeah, they're gone.
January Direct is not happening.
A Pokemon Direct, maybe.
I'm actually kind of surprised that they didn't hold off Pokemon Snap for a. Because I think, you could say, oh, we don't know for sure, whatever. I think a Pokemon Direct on the anniversary is just pencil it in. It's happening, Yeah.
They do love, because I remember Sun and Moon when they announced that for the anniversary.
Yep.
And it was very much unlike Pokemon, where it was just like, we're doing a new game, and here's artwork, right? Where so they sort of out of everything made sure to have something on that day, right? So I imagine they'll have something there as well.
This is a big anniversary. This is 25 years, right?
Yeah. When's Pokemon Day again? February,
26th
right?
or so somewhere in that range. And so I imagine. And a lot's lining up, right? We're gonna see a mainline Pokemon game this year, right? It's probably Diamond and Pearl remakes, right? Pokemon Unite is gonna release this year, right? New Pokemon Snap, obviously. And then we also have games we haven't heard about for a little bit, like Detective Pikachu. Yeah. Pokemon Sleep. We laugh at it, but
we love Sleep.
I think there's a decent chance that reappears this year. So there's just been a lot lining up for Pokemon in this anniversary year.
There'll definitely be some sort of some trading card celebration, which we learned a little bit about, but also Pokemon Go, I'm sure, is going to get something.
Oh, I mean, Pokemon Go in of itself is celebrating an anniversary of its own this year. It's
5 years.
5 years of Pokemon Go,
right?
Yeah.
I mean, I have to think because they did already say with this, they said we're doing the we are aware, we know it's the anniversary, you guys, and it's gonna be a year-long thing, right? Was what they said, which they did for the 20th too, right? That was the one where every year there was a legendary you could get from GameStop or whatever, but part of that's why we mentioned Katy Perry at the start, for those of you who were confused by that. Yeah. Katy Perry is doing a collaboration with Pokemon. It's weird. But they were very clear, this is not the end. There's going to be more that we're going to be announcing for Pokemon in 2021, which is duh. But yeah, like you said, so anniversary feels like the day where you would reveal most of that, And good on it. Pokemon, I mean, this is a year, a ton of anniversaries this year, right? We got Zelda, got Metroid, got a ton of other stuff. But
Resident Evil, I think, is 25 or something like that.
Yeah, Dragon Quest is getting an anniversary, is a bunch of other ones. So we'll see how many of those get celebrated or not. But Pokemon, they will. That much we do promise you.
I mean, Resident Evil also is probably next week. We'll have stuff to talk about.
True. That will be a thing we'll almost certainly talk about next week. In addition to Tall Vampire Mom, we will have other things to discuss. So there it is. That's largely the news for this week. I don't know if there's anything else you want to hit that I'm forgetting about off the top of your dome pieces.
Don't believe so.
No, thank you.
Fun week of news.
Yeah. There's things that we probably left out, but it's fine. Oh no, there was one thing I wanted to mention. The year's coming to a close. I think I said, I don't know how many of you saw this, but Nintendo had an 87% share of the Japanese market in 2020.
Wowzer.
That is wildly impressive for Nintendo, but is that a bad state of affairs for Japan?
Is it bad to love Nintendo?
Well, good for Nintendo, but I
don't know if you could say for Japan, because it's dominated by one player, and that's not healthy. But at the same time, that one player is hardware sales are insane right now. Software sales are better than ever before or at least for a long, long time. Japanese video game sales are thriving right now. It's just they're entirely thriving on the Nintendo Switch and nothing else.
Yeah. And I guess, because I was going to ask this.
Like Konami, it should be noted, big Japanese publisher, right? Konami has released what's looking like going to be their best-selling game in Japan ever. It's already number 3 or number 2. It might have already become number 1 by now. The only things ahead of it were Yu-Gi-Oh! The 2 Yu-Gi-Oh! Games on the Game Boy, right? They released their best-selling Japanese game ever, you know? So Japanese software is thriving right now.
Yeah, I would say that, but I guess what I should say is I feel like the reason why people get nervous when it's Nintendo is because Nintendo will just take a thing that is working and sort of be like, we're just going to do a different thing, right? Because that's what drives them, for better or for worse, right? Leads to some great ideas, leads to some messes, right?
Yeah, but even I feel like it's worth noting, the Switch, even amongst their failures, they've always had a successful system, right? Like 3DS did not live up to the DS, but it still did really, 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 really well.
Still a success. Yeah. No, but my question I was going to ask is, can you talk about the Switch successor, right? Because we're now, we talked about a couple weeks ago that it's still going to be years off, but they are thinking about it at this point, right? Do you think that we do deviate from the hybrid model, or do you think that this is here to stay?
Like, I don't think it'll be iterative, because that's just not in Nintendo's DNA. And I'm not even going to try to predict what it's going to be, because God, who knows with these guys. But I think we're never getting a dual system like pipeline, right? Like, we're not going to have 2 separate platforms anymore. I think that's just like, they can't support 2 platforms, right? They might try to keep Switch afloat for a couple years after, just like they did with the 3DS, going into the Switch, right? Just as like a safety backup, right? I mean, will we get a Pokemon game in the that comes out after the successor has already come out, and everyone's gonna be mad about that? Probably, right? But True. Yeah, I don't know. The Switch is a very popular concept. It'll be weird for them to upend all of that. I wouldn't be surprised if they do, but I don't know. Mm-hmm. Who knows with these guys?
Who knows? Yeah, I don't know. But it's just the thing I've been thinking about, because obviously Nintendo fans are terrified. They're constantly looking over their shoulder that things will go wrong at the very next step. So I was getting a vibe on.
There's not been a single failure from Nintendo that has mainline Pokemon on it. Just throwing that out there. Mainline Pokemon has never failed Nintendo.
True. That's absolutely true.
Maybe they'll come with a system that can broadcast to your TV instead of having to hook it up.
Maybe. That was a very frequent thing that was said during the NX days, so I'm very curious to see if that ever comes to fruition.
Yeah.
But that is the news. That's just sort of talking about video games, but we're not done yet, because we still have Lewis. Had a real creak on my chair that time. Follow along in the pace bin below, as every week we add a game to an ever-growing list of 238 currently. It will be 239 when we're done. This is not the top of all time. This is just whatever we add. Now, last week what was added, because I wasn't here? Oh, DS! Mario Kart DS! You did it so dirty, but that's fine, because I wasn't there to say. This week, I am here to say, it was at 118 in case you were wondering. This week, I will be adding a game. I'm going to say one, and you tell me whether you think it'd be bad form to add it. Okay? And if you think it is, that's okay. I have a backup. Talking about Pokemon spinoffs, I think we need to talk about what's the most successful Pokemon spinoff of all time. You left out the actual answer. The actual answer is Pokemon Go.
Oh.
I think we need to put Pokemon Go on the list.
That's interesting. I mean, we don't. It's still
absolutely a video game.
Yeah.
Brandon, have you gone a month since launch where you have not booted up Pokemon Go?
Yes,
Oh,
finally
okay.
the pandemic has made it that is. It took the pandemic
Because I know you are
yes.
the longest
Um,
time player of any of us here of that game. It was
Yeah.
not a fad for you. It's worth noting. Pokemon Go also, by the way,
And for a lot of
I
people,
think
it should
this
be
gets talked
sad.
about in its legacy. Oh, everyone remembers that summer that launched and it was huge, bigger than anything, right? But Pokemon Go has done remarkably well sustaining itself, right? It just had its peak year in terms of revenue this year.
Yeah,
which is so weird because it's the year that I stopped.
You could attribute a lot of that to they made it a lot easier to play without having to leave your house, right?
They did.
But nonetheless, the previous year was a peak year, I think, and so like 2017 was huge. 2018 they slumped, but then since like the beginning of 2019, like they've really just been on the ball, like really finding ways to reinvigorate this game, ways to keep it going, keep it fresh, right?
Yeah.
I mean, because it's hard to talk about this game without talking about the success of the game, right? And this is one of the things. Is this the first mobile game we are adding? Probably.
Yeah.
I'm sure something is like has a mobile version or whatever the fuck, but
like Phoenix Wright's on mobile, but whatever.
Yeah, I mean even like.
But this is like this is purely a mobile game. This can only be done at mobile
From the ground up.
right? Like this can never come to a
100%.
console or a handheld because.
Unless the Switch
it's got 5G on it, but
and even then it wouldn't. The thing that works about Pokemon Go, the reason it was able to take over the world is because everyone already had the device, right? And everyone knows Pokemon. And
free.
But I mean, it should be said, like everyone knows Pokemon, but Pokemon Masters did not take off.
No, like this is
right. Super Mario Run did not take off.
I mean, this is by far. When it comes to like Nintendo IP, the most successful game, but it's also like just one of the most successful mobile games, period, right?
While having one of the least aggressive monetization systems that exist in big,
I think that deserves to be applauded, right? Is that like this is not a scummy game, right?
They've done a couple things more recently that people have been a little bit iffy about, but for the first at least couple of years,
in the grand scheme of things, though, right? Even then, like it's still not comparable to like other,
Like how many hours have you got, Brandon, in this game versus how much you've spent? Like just that.
Oh, I mean, I've probably spent probably like $50 or something on the game altogether.
Yeah.
But I mean, $50 and like playing it for almost 5 years is nothing, really, and. I also I guess I kind of cheat the system because I have Google Opinion Rewards, which I make like at least $10 a month on that I've been pouring into the game.
Sure.
So that's a little different too. But
it's I think it's fair to say that it's not predatory and it's not scummy like a lot of mobile games are.
No. No, not at all. No, it's very fair.
Now, what was the name of the game that was made by the developers made this game first? Ingress?
Yes.
Ingress.
Right.
Yeah.
Because I see people sometimes say Pokemon Go, they just stumbled into it. Right? They just whatever. It should be said to
Niantic, by the way, is the company.
Niantic is the company, yes. The way the Pokestop systems work, the way that the maps work in this game, the way that spawning works and they use GPS data for all this stuff is not by accident, right?
No, it was all pulled from that game. I mean, even if you had played that game, all the Pokestops or whatever the equivalent is in Ingress were all
at least at launch
exactly
before they started adding more.
Like so. At least at launch, they've changed things since.
But that's I think a good thing because ultimately those Pokestops like they're able to detect these are the right places to put Pokestops to get the phenomenon we had. Right?
I mean it's nice that they had that backdrop because then a lot of Pokemon go to you can say out the gate it still kind of stumbled despite like being so popular, right? But like it gave them that framework and it's just a genius idea, just here's a game that's about like exploring the world essentially, right? But the vehicle we use to get you to do that is there's Pokemon everywhere, right? Pokemon are in our real world and they inhabit at every corner basically, right? And it gets you to kind of it just gets you to see new sights in a lot of ways, right?
Yeah.
That was the coolest thing about it. I mean, the thing about Pokemon Go that I always say why I love it so much is it's less of a gameplay experience as much as it is a social experience. Because it was just so much fun going around with my friends, you know, and just having that social experience where you're going out and just hanging out with each other.
Yeah.
And that was the coolest part. And you'd meet new people, and not as much anymore, but when the game first came out, you know, you'd meet new people. It was really cool. And also, you'd be going around, like, your town or other towns nearby or cities and finding landmarks and things that you might not have visited before.
Yeah.
You're finding new, like, historic landmarks, and you're like, wow, now, you know, now you're there, you might as well, you take the time to, like, actually check it out, and you're like, this is actually really cool.
Yeah.
My town has a lot of cool things I didn't know about. And that's just so fucking cool that kind of stuff happened because of this game.
Yeah, people had Pokemon Go stories, right?
Yeah.
And I think that, like, that doesn't happen for many video games, right? Like, this thing happened to me, and I feel like I need to share it with someone else because it just caught me off guard, right? And you can say, is the game the vessel and then the people their real story, whatever, right? This wouldn't have happened if the game wasn't the intermediary there. So it deserves credit in my mind.
Without a
right?
doubt.
Yeah.
Now, I mean, as a game, the base battle system, especially at the start, was not good, right?
Yeah.
The catching was fine. I thought the catching was fun, right?
Catching was interesting. It was kind of neat, and it had, you know, you could do the curveballs and stuff,
Yeah.
and very basic, but also kind of fun. But the battles, like, because you had the gyms, they've expanded on it and made it much better sense. But you know, basically the battles were literally you're just tapping a screen. There was really no strategy to it.
It was it was just a stat check, right? That's all it was.
Yeah. So it wasn't great. But it was, the fun of it was just, you know, trying to catch Pokemon with your friends and going around.
I mean, you know, it very much gotta catch them all, you know, and
it's a perfect use of the IP.
Almost.
I can't think of a better.
Yeah.
Like, it's crazy this game existed without Pokemon being a part of it because I can't imagine a more perfect fit, right? Like, Dragon Quest kind of is working in Japan because Dragon Quest is insane, but like the Harry Potter game didn't work, right?
No.
Like, Pokemon was the one. You nailed it in one, you know?
Yeah.
You gotta catch them all, like you said.
Get out of here. Sorry, Garfield, but get out of here.
No, that's the best one. That should be number one. So where should it go on the list, though?
This is so weird, man. This is such a weird thing.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I really don't even. I can't even begin to, like.
Well, Will, you get first dibs.
So
I get first dibs.
I have an area in mind.
All right. Okay. I think it should be in the Mario Maker area at 67-ish, above or below.
That is about where I was looking, yeah.
Yeah, it's weird because like you should put it. I feel like it deserves to be high just based on the merits of what it has done, and like it. In just,
this is not Legacy. This is a different thing.
It's not Legacy. It is weird because it's not.
It
Legacy.
is a singular experience. There is nothing before it and probably after that will be like this, right?
It's such a weird thing because, and I feel like everybody's experience with Pokemon Go could be different because you could have, you know, sorry if I'm hitting a soft spot, but you could have no friends, and you could, you know, and you could just be in a spot where you had a completely different experience with Pokemon Go. You know what I mean?
But it also was
you lived in the middle of nowhere, so you're like, well, this game sucks. There's nothing for me to do in it. You know.
But I also think, speaking of that, I think it was also a like a way for a lot of people to make friends, especially in that initial rush, right? But even now, like you know, like I feel like you could, like I guarantee you, and maybe that's just because I've lived in a city and so it's different, maybe, right? I have never gone, and even years after launch, gone to do a gym, take over the gym, and within minutes, someone else has done something to it. You know, always, just always. It's just you know, and so people are still playing this game. People still like, you know, and I think you can still make connections with this game, and that's just so unique, right? Like being able to meet people in the real world because of like Pokemon, right? That's like,
yeah. And I mean, I think it's hard to say one way or the other, right? When it comes to how do you address that this could be a very different experience, right? Because, when it first blew up, I was visiting in Seattle, right? When I got home, it was a very different experience because I live in a rural area where it was different, right? But I would say like above it would be Left 4 Dead 2, right? And Left 4 Dead is an appreciably different game multiplayer than single player, right? Like there are just sometimes things that you just say, this game was designed with multiplayer in mind, and that's just the... And
like the way we're talking about social experiences, right? And like, does it deserve credit for that or not? And I think the reason why I would say it strongly does is because like they made this framework that allowed you to have these experiences, right? That you just sort of wouldn't have otherwise. Just you would not, right? Like if the game was not engaging, then people would not be playing it the way they do, right? Like there's clearly something to the game itself that drives you to do the rest of that takes you to that elevates your experience.
Yeah. I mean, it is because it's fun.
Yeah, like it's just fun to, and like over time. And this is gonna be a weird one because like over time they're gonna add stuff and it's gonna get better, right? And it's worth noting over the last 5 years, especially, it's initially there was that element of social interaction with like real people, I guess like physical contact, I guess, right? But then later they added the friends and the gift system, right? Where suddenly like for a good while that kind of reinvigorated my interest in the game because it's like every day I just pop in. I have to go to a Pokestop to go get gifts, right? So I have to go walk in person. But then I go send that gift to Brandon. Brandon gets like a little reminder. Hey Brandon, like I'm thinking of you. Like.
That's nice.
True. Now you can send little stickers.
Yeah, and just things like that. Like it just really drives you to be more social, I guess, and it's encourages a healthy lifestyle.
Sure, people lost weight because of Pokemon Go.
So I'm feeling like my brain is going to like Wii Sports, like. I was gonna put it above Brawl. Actually, was where I kind of had settled on.
Wow. Brandon, what are you feeling like? It's hard.
Below Wii Sports. Wii Sports has such a.
Yeah, it's hard to compare, right? Like, well, it's weird because, like, I mean, both are just phenomenons.
It's also a very
right?
social game,
but
yeah. The cultural,
and Wii Sports is like as a game probably is like held up better, I guess. Like you're playing tennis and it replicates that wonderfully. You're playing tennis and it's a great time, right? And that's always been my argument for why Wii Sports should be so high, is because it is still to this day just a blast to play, right?
It's really fun, really, really fun.
These are both interesting because they're both proof of concepts that really haven't been replicated since, right? Like, the proof of concept is this, like, outside social game, right? Which, it should be really, Pokemon Go before it came out was a topic of a lot of derision from people, right? Who were like, because Pokemon Company was like, we think we can make the world a better place through Pokemon Go. And people were like, you dumb idiots, right? And then it kind of did.
It's kind of one of those people. I'm not saying they're dumb idiots, but I was like, I don't know if they can,
Yeah, and I don't think Pokemon Sleep's going to do the same thing again, right? But maybe we'll be the fools. But it did work in this case, right? Wii Sports and Nintendo said, we think motion control is going to be the future. And both of them were like, yeah, I mean, look at this. Come on, right? You can't say no to it. I
would be fine either above or below Wii Sports. I don't feel strongly one way or another. I guess.
I guess I'd be fine. I would put it below.
Okay,
but that's
we can go below. You two are feeling below, so
yeah, same.
Sounds good to me.
Okay.
No lower than that though.
Let's see. There's Awakening.
There's Wario Land.
I wouldn't go any lower than right below Awakening, though. Is what where I'm at. That is my absolute floor.
I'm okay with putting it below Awakening.
Okay, I am also. So we'll do that.
Okay.
All right, there it is. Pokemon Go. What a weird one. So at number 55 on the list, surrounding it. Number 52, Left 4 Dead 2. 53, Wii Sports. 54, Fire Emblem Awakening. 55, Pokemon Go. 56, Wario Land 4. 57, Super Smash Bros. Melee. 58, Psychonauts. I did 7 rather than 5 that time. That is the podcast for this week. I want to thank you all for listening. Of course, plugs, final phrases. Someone, please take this from me.
I'll do the plugs.
Do you want to close us off, or do you want me to take it?
Yeah, you didn't get to say it,
Okay.
Lyle.
You could do it.
Okay.
All right. Well, if you enjoyed the Jump Up Supercast, please make sure you check us out on your favorite podcast listening service of your choice, whether that's iTunes, SoundCloud, or YouTube, where new episodes go up every single Monday, as well as our other show, the Jump Up Supercast Game Club, where the new episodes go up every other Thursday. We have a new episode coming up this Thursday, if you're listening to this when we post it. And it's going to be a Jump Up Supercast Game Club episode of Disney's Hercules. So if you want to hear us talk about that game, make sure you check it out. And give us a follow, give us a like, a share, comment down below. Tell us what your experiences were with Pokemon Go. Did we put it in the right spot on the list? What do you think? Tell us what if you're excited to play the new Pokemon Snap. And how about Mario? Tell us about Mario. Tell us what you're thinking down in the comments. Did we do a good job? Did we make you laugh at least once? Just let us know. And if you want to support the podcast, we do have a Patreon where for $1 a month you get the chance to choose one of our Game Club games every round. And we recently played a game called Firewatch. That was a Patreon pick. So if there is a game you want us to play, you can do that for just $1 a month. You get the chance to win. And you can also follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Stay up to date, everything Jump Up Supercast related. You can catch us streaming from time to time on twitch.tv/JumpUpSupercast. Buzzy's playing Mario games. I play Fall Guys. We play other stuff sometimes here and there. So if you want to hang out and want to know what we're playing, make sure you give us a follow. And as always, I want to thank my good friends for joining me today on the podcast. And I want to thank everybody else for listening. You guys are the real MVPs. And Muzzy, take us away with your final phrase.
There is a Splatfest going on. It'll conclude right before this podcast goes live. Team Mushroom versus Team Superstar. The star gives you confidence. That's all you need to beat a Mario game. So Team Star for the win.